What is going on, everybody? Fallenfo back again for another video, and today we're going to be talking about upgrading one of your budget boards. A lot of people that are just now getting into the keyboard hobby aren't dishing out $400, $500, $600 for boards, but yet you still want to make your budget board sound as good as one of the expensive boards, or as close as we can get. So today I'm going to be working on the Akko 3061, and this is the Tokyo World Tour Edition. I think this guy retails for like 85 bucks. I'll leave a link down in the description below if you want to actually pick up this exact board to follow along with this tutorial. But this will also cover the basics of a GK61, RK61, basically any budget hot swappable keyboard this is going to work with. And also, before we dive into today's video, please consider liking and subscribing because it helps me continue to make awesome content for you guys, which I really look forward to. All right, let's get into it. So first things first, you're going to want to pop off all of your keycaps. This is going to give us access to all the screws and everything underneath the keycaps, the PCB, the stabilizers, and everything that we're going to need to get our hands on. Our first tool that we're going to be using is this small little Phillips head screwdriver bit. And you should see 4 to 6 screws holding the PCB to the case, so just locate the small silver little screws and unscrew all of them out. Once you get that done, I use the tip of the screwdriver to gently lift up the PCB. Once I could get my fingers under it, lift up and pull backwards and out to avoid damaging the USB Type-C on the top left of the board. Now that we have the PCB and the plate separated from the case, you can set this case off to the side. We won't be needing this until later. So first we're going to be working on the stabilizers, which are located here, 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 here. Now some PCBs are hot swap and you can pull the switches out, and you will need a switch puller kind of like this one right here that you can pick up on Amazon for a couple bucks. But this PCB is not hot swap, so I'll be showing you guys how to mod stabilizers with a non-hot swap PCB. But I'll also show you how to mod stabilizers just in case you do have a hot swap. This small portion of the video is going to be for the people that have hot swap PCBs that you can pull the switch out and access the stabilizers. You'll start off by doing a half twist motion to pop off the actual housing and the stem from the wire itself. Once you do that, you will take the housing with the stem pulled out of it. I like to use Krytox 205 grade 0 on the inside of the housing and the stem, and lightly brush a nice even coat over the inside of the housing itself, as well as the outside of the stem too. Now inserting the stem back into the housing, there's going to be a side that has 2 small holes on it. That will be the side that will be facing where the wire will be inserted. It only goes in one way, and as you see, I put it in backwards on purpose to show you guys if it's in backwards, it'll be very hard to pull up. Flip it around and it should be nice and smooth just like this. Next up, I just take some dielectric grease and I dip the wire into the insert of the tube, making sure to get all the way around the 90-degree bend of the wire because that's actually where the plastic makes contact with the wire as well. And we want to make sure that there's no rattle whatsoever. So I'm just going to wipe off some of the excess on the wire because if you have too much dielectric grease or Krytox in your wire, you'll get a very slaggy and laggy feel when you press your switch and it bottoms out, and we don't want that. Next, insert the wire, drop it down into this little clip right here until it pops in, and there you go. You have lubed stabilizers. Now back to our board that is not hot swap. As you can see on the back side, these are soldered in switches, which means we cannot pull the actual stabilizer out of the housing itself. Do not fear, I do have a solution. All you're going to need is this blunt tip syringe that I have right here. I will link it down in the description below. I picked it off of Amazon. It's got a very thick opening and it allows you to suck up Krytox, so you can just jam it into the opening of the stabilizer itself and inject Krytox into the stabilizer without even having to pull it out. Being very gentle, suck some of it up into your syringe and brush off the excess back into the jar so you don't waste any Krytox, because this ish is like liquid gold. And now it's time to inject. So here I'm actually just pulling the stem up with these tweezers just so I can get the nozzle of the tip into the stabilizer to where I can inject some of the Krytox into the base where the wire touches the plastic. Just lift up the stem with your tweezers, inject the blunt end syringe in there, and just give a little squeeze. You don't want to do too much. Work it up and down just to kind of move it around the outsides of the wire. You do not want to over lube, so you can always add a little, test them, and come back and add more if needed. At this point, this would be a good time to get your switches up and out to lube them if this was hot swap, but unfortunately this is a non-hot swap board, so we will be just passing right over this. I will do a video very soon on how to lube a switch, so stay tuned. So this is a very popular cheap mod that people are doing. It is putting painter's tape on the backside of the PCB to kind of dampen some of the hollowness that resonates off of the switch when you press the key down. There is a slight noticeable difference, but just for the price of the tape and how cheap it is, I think it's worth doing it on a budget board. It kind of gives it a little more dense sounding sound, being that we are using a plastic case on our board. Now, as you can see, gently I'm cutting around this diode and around the USB Type-C because you cannot cover these up absolutely completely because it will bottom out on the bottom of the board. So just cut around anything that is protruding from the back of the PCB, being very careful not to scrape off any of the capacitors or resistors on the back of the PCB with the tip of our X-Acto knife, so just be careful. So now that we are tape modded, we are ready to flip it over and start working on the case. I'm going to be throwing in some foam in this case. There are tons of different foam that you can use, but this first layer of foam that I'm putting down is a very, very dense and squishy, kind of almost aquatic boat style foam. This foam actually came out of the bottom of an old toolbox I had, so it was really just like a dampening kind of bottom of the drawer. I had probably 30 to 40 feet of it, so I kept it and figured I'd throw it in a keyboard, and it actually works pretty good at dampening sound. Now, there's no right or wrong way to do case foam. I just kind of put it anywhere that I really can that sits in these little grooves in the pre-molding of the actual plastic case. So I'll either cut with scissors or rip it with my hands and just really shove it anywhere that the foam will fit into. Because the more empty hollow space that we can fill with the foam to stop the reverberation of the hollowness, the better. Now I'm going to be doing a second layer of foam with this kind of spongy, more soft foam. Just kind of playing with the acoustics, plus this one smushes down a lot better, so when you put the PCB on top of it, it gives a lot more give, so it'll actually squish down between the nice hard layer of foam and the soft layer of foam, creating a double layer effect. Now what I like to do to find where the holes are actually going to line up, where our screws went through the actual PCB down into the case, is I like to put the case and the PCB back together, kind of pushing firmly down so it leaves an imprint on the tape so I know where the standoffs are to screw our screws back through the actual PCB into the case. As you can see right here, it's left little imprints in the tape, and from there I'll just take my screwdriver and poke holes through the actual tape itself, allowing the standoffs to come through. And now we get to go back together. Take your screws, putting them through the holes that we pulled them out to prior, and screw everything back down into its original spot. Grab those keycaps that we took off earlier. This is also a good opportunity if you do buy any aftermarket keycaps for your board. After modifying it, now's the time that you'll put on your aftermarket keycaps, and once we're done with this, we will be ready to do our sound test. I'm actually going to spice this board up with this nice resin artisan of two koi fish swimming together. It matches the pink oh so well and the Japanese theme, so I think this artisan is going to fit in absolutely amazing. Now take this video with a grain of rice. This was on a non-hot swap board, and this is about all the modifications that you can really do without desoldering. Now when it comes to a board like the GK61 where you can actually pop the switches out, you can get into lubing your switches, actually pulling apart the stabilizers like I showed you and lubing your stabilizers, and it makes things a little bit more easy. Plus you can put other switches in your board and you're not stuck with the ones that originally came with it. But I wanted to include both options for some people that don't have the hot swap capabilities, that are looking to upgrade their keyboard and are kind of stuck because they feel like just because it's a soldered board that they can't do anything. As you can tell from the sound test, it's a lot more deep and rich of a sound, and the stabilizers are not rattly. Here's an example of a really rattly stabilizer versus our stabilizers that we've modded on a non-hot swap board. It's a world of difference. Do not be scared to modify your keyboard. Most of the parts in here are pretty sturdy and you're not gonna break it. Just take your time and have fun with it. Thank you so much for watching today's video, and make sure to like and subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you guys on the next video.